Is linear phase EQ bad for low end? Now, I've got tests here and I'm challenging myself and I'm challenging you to watch this. Leave your comments down below and challenge me back. If you see anything you don't like, if you hear anything that you think is a little bit contrived or you can improve on, let me know. This is a challenge as engineers to better ourselves and get deeper in our knowledge. And if you're somebody who's interested in getting deeper and further in your knowledge, you would be subscribed to the best newsletter for working audio professionals. That's the newsletter I put out. That's in the description below. And now we're going to jump into this. I had a solid train of thought for the last maybe 5-6 years that when I use linear phase EQ, it introduces pre-ringing, and thus my transients in the low end aren't as sharp. Now, there's been a few little hints, and I'm going to show you some tests in a moment, but I just want to give you background so you have full contextual knowledge, and you can even chime in the comments. So Luca Predalesi, he uses linear phase mode on his Pro MB settings, where he sculpts the low end with it. And I've always found that interesting, and I'm like, well, why would he use linear phase if it introduces pre-ringing? Now, I'm not there to debunk that, but it's just something where every now and then an engineer I respect and I know uses linear phase for low end. And then I got this comment last week saying linear phase is linear phase EQ is bad for low end. And that's what sort of sparked this video. I'm like, well, how do we test this? Well, what I'm going to do is, we know it causes pre-ringing. So the first thing we need to do is we have to plot how much pre-ringing does it cause. Now, we're not going to use this. This is an extreme example. We'll look at this example in a moment. So I've got a sync wave here, which represents all frequencies at equal value. And this is plotted in a spectrogram, which is a fast Fourier transform plot, which shows energy over time or amplitude over time in the form of a graph or a color graph. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take, where are we? Isotope EQ. Where are you, EQ? There you are, baby. We're going to bring the EQ in. We're going to put in digital mode, and we're going to do that same cut I did in my video last week, where I did a BAL 7Q, -6 dB, and then we're going to render this, and this is going to be in linear phase. What I'm going to see is there's a little bit of audio that comes in, like a little bit of pre-ringing that's before, and a little bit that's after. Now, there's a few things to observe here, okay? First, we're going to look at the time constant, okay? So how far back from that initial impulse does that pre-ringing start? Roughly about 13 to 15 milliseconds there. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I've got two sync waves here, and we're going to shift one off by 15 milliseconds. Whoops, not 15 minutes. Let's go 015. Okay, we're going to shift one by 15 milliseconds. Now let's take a listen and see if we can hear this shift, which we will. 15 milliseconds is pretty noticeable. Okay, so if it was creating pre-ringing 15 milliseconds before, and the pre-ringing was equal amplitude to the source signal, this would occur. Okay, you'd have a very clear definition of this. But I don't think that's the case, because the RMS of that peak, okay, that peak max RMS level there at the peak is 37 decibels. And if I highlight this pre-ringing section, just going to go back a little bit further to get a max RMS level, or total RMS level there is -90. Okay, so that's 53 decibels of RMS or energy below the peak value RMS. So if I go 53 decibels down, so if I take this signal that comes in before it and bring it down 53 decibels, do we still hear that flamming? If you say you can hear it, you're lying. And here's why. Temporal masking. So you've got auditory masking and frequency masking. There's another psychoacoustic phenomenon called temporal masking, where two sounds play within such close time of one another, and either they're separated in amplitude or frequency in which you can't perceive the original impulse or the original tone, because the second one that plays is actually louder in amplitude. So what am I getting at here? I'm getting at a normal conventional use of an EQ in mastering in linear phase, that difference, that pre-ringing, isn't bad for low end. So what is? What is actually bad for low end? Well, this is what's bad for low end, and this is what a lot of the examples on YouTube have, where they're exploring linear phase EQ, is where you go, and this actually makes a case for normal phase EQ being bad for low end. So let me just show you this. Where's FabFilter? Fab filter EQ, Q3, there we go. All right, let's get a bell. We'll make a super sharp Q, we'll cut it. Okay, we're going to cut it big time. We're going to render this in linear phase. We'll get this super linear phase and render. And oh, wow, okay, this is a bit different. What's happening here? Well, you know, we've got a lot more pre-ringing over a greater sustained period of time. So you minimize that temporal masking that happens when they're happening almost instantaneously. So what I'm trying to get at here is, yes, linear phase EQ is bad for low end if you're doing a super steep notch. But look at this, and that's 30 decibels down. But look at this, what happens. Let's use natural phase and render it. That's just as bad for low end. It completely throws it out. Is linear phase EQ bad for low end? Based on this, I would say no. Is natural phase bad for low end? Based on this, I would say no. Is poor use of your EQ bad for low end? Yes. So, in all conventional terms, and you're doing 2-3 dB cut, 6 dB cut, 4 dB boost, whatever it might be, whether you're in linear phase mode or natural phase mode, isn't going to ruin your low end. What is when you start doing, you know, like if you go linear phase, super tight notch, yeah, that's gonna create some issues. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because I think the comment was fair, given that I have the same conviction, or I had the same conviction about linear phase and low end frequencies. However, I wanted to look into it a bit deeper, and I think this is a bit of a conceited or contrived test, like it's a bit slapped together. There's probably better case study or use cases going deeper on this, which I would implore you to poke holes in my analysis of this so we can explore it deeper. The deeper we explore something, the more knowledge we have towards it, the better we can apply it in our practice. So I think that's a really healthy way to go about this. And anyway, I'll leave you with that, and until next time, take care.